we're going to be talking about online intake. And the reason we're talking about that is so many of our pardon projects are still all volunteer. It's work intensive, and there are a lot of things that you need the same information about everybody. So why are we spending the time asking people individually at intake clinics when we could get that information online and then make the connection between them and a pardon coach? So Jeremy, you said you'd be up first, so take it away. Wait a second, I got to make sure that you're. I am screen sharing. Oh, sorry, giving you power. Hold on. All right, but you can at least unmute yourself and start talking.
Morning, everyone. Nice to meet you if I haven't already, and if I have, nice to see you again. Good morning, Toby. Yes, if you'll
Good
get
morning.
screen.
Yep. Wait a second. I know, but yeah, there you go.
Better.
Got it?
There we go.
Okay, go for it. Jeremy is the person who founded the first Pardon Hub, Pardon Project outside of Philadelphia. So he's been with us since the very, 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 very start, right even before COVID. So go for it.
Thank you. So I'll do this quick, but just know that we are willing to dive deeper if anyone has questions beyond what we're covering today. The idea originally, when we learned of the report that was released and kind of the job opportunities that existed, and we heard the work that Pulse was doing, we thought, well, what can we do? So we trained a bunch of coaches through Toby, and then we realized we had a data issue. So I built a platform that was designed to be very inexpensive because we have zero resources financially, and make it simplified for the client and also for our coaches. So I used the Google platform, which I'll show you in a second, to build a website which is dynamic and has our flyer and has the basic requirements. It's designed to be simple. It is not, complex or confusing. It tells a little bit about on the About page, kind of like some of the partners and the reason why it exists. Show some photos so people can see we're legit. Our partners are listed here. I run an entrepreneurial incubator called BreakIT, which is our 501c3 that partners with this project to make this happen. And then some of the other organizations, of course, as well as resources that we regularly use, such as the docket search, PA, state police documents, etc. That report I spoke of. And then we have the applications that anyone can click and open right up on the screen, as well as other resources that might be useful. I'm sure we're familiar with all of these. And we have a place where people can volunteer. Just a simple FAQ. We're probably going to be building that out, but if they have interest in contacting us, as you can see, it's very simple. The Google platform allows this to be very user friendly, and anyone is capable of doing this work because it's so user friendly. So, I can go into deeper dive on this at another time, but the platform is really quite simple and it doesn't cost anything. The only cost is the actual domain, but the hosting is inexpensive in the sense that it costs nothing. So it's a very user-friendly platform. It's also nice because the forms, so when someone clicks the apply button, it goes into a form that looks like this. They log in and can see, the beginning of the form, and as they fill it out, it continues to run them through 3 sections. If I were to look at it as the owner of the form, I can see here that this particular one has 115 responses, and that this is sort of the newer version of the form that we've been using, but it has, a mechanism here by which to build this out, and we can see all of the questions in the respective sections, and then the responses come in, and we can view this in sheets, which looks like this. And I have it blacked out so we can't see any personal information, but we can see here how, nice everything comes in. It's color coded based on who the coach is. And then we keep track of everything in the form of how we actually followed up with them, what the notes are, what the status is, and, that information goes on and on and on. But it's very handy to be able to keep track of. We are in the process right now of converting all of this to another application, which is much more dynamic. And it's more of a CRM type solution. Again, we can dive in deeper on that, but I'm going to put here in the chat in a second a link to the documents here that we're speaking of, but this particular one is where you can get a copy, a PDF of all of the questions that we are asking, so that if you're curious, you can see that information.
Well,
This is just helpful.
Jeremy, don't brush over that too quickly. What kinds of questions are you asking on your online intake?
Yeah, so this is very thorough, as you might see, and the reason is that we want to be able to realize right up front: are they actually eligible? What types of crimes are they? Do they need to clear? And this allows us to choose the correct type of person to assist them based on the level of experience. So we're obviously getting standard information, right? Name, contact, birth date, that sort of thing. But then we're asking questions about income. We don't have any income restrictions. We do all of this work for free regardless of that, but we do find that sometimes that information is useful for other purposes like grant writing and such. So we do track that. We do track demographics for the same purposes. Some of those questions are not required, but then we get into the parts that have to do with their actual convictions and arrests and charges and timeframes, and these things just really allow us to hone in. And then we use some of the questions that we ask towards the end about, are they willing to accept responsibility, and what are the struggles they've had, and we use that as assistance and filling out their application. Sometimes they get stuck. Sometimes that allows me to kind of read back and go through that information, and again, we can see the kinds of things that people are putting in. It's actually quite thorough, considering employment issues, furthering problems, and things that they've had. You get some pretty good answers. And it's just a starting point. In your own words, why do you feel that you should be given a part in? We ask, do people, are they willing to accept responsibility? And that allows me to address. You can see mostly yeses, but sometimes it's a no. So I have to have a conversation with them, as we all know that that's not going to work. And then maybe they're willing and maybe they're not. But this information is just really helpful to know. It's also helpful to know what neighborhood they're in, because a lot of times I'll meet with them in person if possible. We ask at the very beginning, how do you prefer to meet? And so that's a question that's actually really helpful to know. Maybe they don't. We had a lady once who was in a wheelchair and, needed me to go to a wheelchair accessible place to meet with her. She was not a technology person. So I knew all of that right from the application. It just really allows us to tailor the approach.
And I think is the draft you have up there now, Jeremy, the draft you started with 3 years ago when you were beginning to do intake? I mean, everyone should know he ran it out of a diner, right? I mean, he invited people in and he interviewed people over a meal.
Yeah, we did. That was the original start of the project. And obviously it has morphed a lot. There were partners that were on board originally and things have changed. As we all know, this is really hard work. And if you have lived experience, you're in it for the long haul. Sometimes if you don't, you want to, do it for a good reason, but sometimes you don't have the energy to go all the way. So we've morphed, and now the Entrepreneurial Incubator is the primary sponsor. In the process of that, we've revamped the website. We've revamp the application process, just because we keep tweaking it. And we are actually in the process now. I'm not going to say too much, but we are working with a national organization, and we'll do another presentation in the future. Toby doesn't even know this yet, but we're working with an organization that is going to allow us to handle the applications via AI in a way that is very much more dynamic and allows the individual to have help with writing their essays, their I don't know what the proper term is, but the part where they have to kind of speak, that's the struggle. And we do that for them a lot. And that's, not as sincere. So we'll allow them to do that through this new project that will be implemented right into our website. And once I have that up and running and tested, then I'll bring that to this group so everyone can do the same.
And Danielle, you're there. Danielle's from York County, and I put a link in the materials so you could access what did you call it? Jot form? Listen, you can say anyone can do this, Jeremy, and there's no way I could. But Danielle, can you talk about what you've been able to accomplish out in York, how it works for you?
Sure. Do I have access to share my screen? I think I
Wait
do.
a second. Yeah, hold on. Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to do that.
You see my screen?
Nice.
Okay.
Yes, yes, excellent.
Okay, so we use a program called Jotform. There is, unlike Jeremy's, there is a cost for Jotform. If you're a nonprofit organization, you're eligible to have a discount. So we use this throughout our entire program. So we are completely paperless. Everything that clients need to fill out, sign, anything like that is all done through JotForm. So we have hundreds of forms on our JotForm. We use it for all of our HR forms. Everything that goes through this organization is done through JotForm. So if you're just going to use this for the pardon project and maybe you're in a smaller county, you may be able to use this just on the free version. But like the bronze version, it's not very expensive if you're going to use it for multiple things. And it's incredibly user-friendly. Like Jeremy said, both of these programs I think are user-friendly. They kind of run similar, but obviously a little bit different. For this form, you're able to just go through and it has a bunch of like templates. They have multiple templates that you can choose from. We've created this form, but you just go through and like if you want to add somebody's name, you just push name and then it shows up. So it's pretty easy to use. And then we basically, I think, have all of the same questions that Jeremy does for all of the same reasons: name, address, county of residence. We ask if they're registered to vote. If they're not registered to vote, we send them the information so that they can get registered to vote, and we encourage them to vote as well. And then we go through employment, how much money they make, because we do have the 200% poverty level threshold on our pardon project right now. We go through dependent children, financial situation, and then obviously like getting into the background. And so the nice thing about this, you'll see some that are kind of grayed out. So if they have charges in York County and they click on this yes or no, then it'll pop up and ask what county their charges are in, so that we're able, if they have charges in a county that has a pardon project, or we're able to get the documents that we need for a pardon from that county, we will do so. And then just going through, so all of these ones that are grayed out, it depends on how they answer the question before that. So if they're currently on probation or parole, they would check yes, and then it would be for what charges and how long, because that will obviously tell us whether they're eligible for a pardon at this point. And if they're convicted of a crime in another state. And then the nice thing about this form is we collect all the data up front that we need to see if they're eligible for the project. So they will fill in their annual income, and I can kind of show you that how this works and calculates itself. So if they say that they have an annual income of $50,000, like it automatically, I have it set up so it automatically calculates all of these things. And then they select how many family members they have. And this is the 2025 poverty guideline. And then so it'll tell me that they're at 160% of the poverty level, which means that they're eligible for our program. And then right here, they're able to upload their social security statement, any income information, their pay stubs, last year's taxes, anything like that. They're able to upload that. And then they automatically sign on this form. And then we have a release of information so that we're able to get their records from the clerk of courts right away. So we can send this to the clerk of courts. And then we also have a release of information right away, so that information is able to be shared with their coach. So pretty much everything comes to us in a PDF. So once they submit this intake packet, we get this PDF to our email. And so we're able to see everything in a PDF, see if they're eligible for the program. And if they are, then we're able to move right forward without contacting them to get their records and to send their information to the coach with the releases of information that we have. And then also, just like Jeremy's system, ours, we're able to extract the information. Pretty simple. We can export all of it to Excel, and then we're also able to tell it which parts of the application we want to extract from this and to use for grants and information like that.
That's really remarkable. And Cornell Titus from Pittsburgh Community Services, Inc., says you use the same program. Cornell, does it come out to you the same way with a report about the person who's asking for help?
So we have it set up. I don't use it specifically for like intake purposes on the pardon per se. But I do use it for the personal story aspect of the application. And then I use it for like our registration for like our job fairs and stuff like that. So I do capture some of the same stuff like the demographic, contact information and stuff like that. And it does allow you to upload documents that I can use for intake purposes. But we use a different program for our
Okay,
like
got it.
hosting the client. So yeah, yep.
All right.
So
So
the nice
Danielle,
part about JotForm, yeah, is I can share this. Like I made a clone of it so that I was able to take everything off and just go through and show you it. But I can make a clone of this and I can send it to anybody who's using JotForm, and all they have to do is just take that clone and put it into their system, and they can start using the form. And so you can set it up to make it, send an email to whoever needs the form. So if 5 people need the form, it'll send each of those 5 people an email. And you can there's a lot of things that you can do with JotForm, but the basics of it is pretty user friendly.
all right. So quick question for you, Danielle, and then back to you, Jeremy, for the same question. Then I'm going to call on DB for his question. What's the failure rate, the dropout rate, the number of people who start this and then decide they're not going to finish? Do you have any sense of, is this too complicated for people to actually get their way through?
Oh, I don't think so. Nobody has complained about it. We use it for so when our clients come in, and we do pretty much this same intake for all of our clients that come into our program, for all of our reentry programs. Once we submit the forms, like we do client intake, like client signature pages, and we're able to send them a link, and all they have to do is click on the link, and then they're able to just sign all of the forms, and it gets automatically PDF right back to our case managers. So I have not had anybody complain about the use of this, the use of the form at all.
Okay, and Jeremy,
Whether-
how about the dropout rate that you're seeing at the Allegheny Pardon Hub?
No, the tech is only making it easy. It's not, there's no issue there. Dropout rate, a lot of times the problem is that we see people that aren't yet eligible. That's probably number one. Number two, which again, we know right out of the gate. So we have a template email we can just send them. And then alternatively, it's people getting hung up working on their part, the homework, right? But
Yep.
this is why the AI thing I think will be helpful working on that.
Yep.
So I don't know the exact percentage. I guess we could run some numbers, but I'd say 30% probably get hung up, and we just follow up with them. And then sometimes a year later, we'll hear from someone. The other advantage of, I was just going to say, the Google platform is that, we also, I didn't show this, but obviously Google Drive is where we keep all of the files. And so whenever someone has a certain color on the file, that represents their, who the coach is. And so then we can just easily share the folder with them, as we're all familiar with how Google platform works. So all of their files are in there, right? The documents that came back from the county, et cetera. So that platform is just very universal. Doesn't quite have the features that, our work showed there, but it is very user friendly if you don't have a budget. So if anyone has interest, I'm happy to dive in deeper. If you'd ever like a customized training on how to set all that up, happy to do that.
Watch out, Jeremy. You just said that in a recorded statement, so people from all around the state are going to be contacting you. You're a good man to offer that. Thank you so much. I'm really pleased to have on the line Don Berliner, who is the retired IT person that we brought on as a volunteer for Pulse way back when, who has developed an online application intake form as well. So DB, you raised your hand, but I've outed you now as an expert. So what would you like to say, sir? Thanks for joining us.
Well, first of all, I'm hardly retired anymore. Jeremy and Danielle both, it's very, very impressive what you've done. Danielle, you may have said this, but I may not have caught it. Where do you store the information permanently that people fill out in the intake?
So JotForm has its own storage. So we can store, I think it said something like 10,000 forms. So it's all stored in JotForm. So every single form that we have has its own inbox. And so we can go into that inbox and pull all the information specifically for that form.
Can you also do, reporting across clients too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Something I just want to point out too before we move on. The support for JotForm is incredibly helpful. They have a whole board that you can post on. People can answer you, but their support is incredibly responsive. I would say the longest I've waited for a response from them is 2 hours, and they will actually clone your form. You give them the link to the form, they'll clone it, and they'll fix things if you can't figure out how to fix it. So it's really, their support is incredible.